some truffles, make sure you know if you're going for the chocolate kind or the psilocybin containing kind. Some of the fears of psychedelic abuse of this agent sort of fueled the DEA classification, as well as the reduction in research that had been going on around the use of psilocybin. But this research was recently revived in the 1990s, and that's some of what I'll talk about today. So in terms of the pharmacology of psilocybin, as I showed you on the previous slide, its structure is very, very similar to the endogenous neurotransmitter serotonin. Psilocybin is actually a prodrug. It is dephosphorylated to the molecule psilocin, and it's psilocin actually that has all of the psychoactive effects. It's pretty short acting. In healthy adults, the half-life is only about 3 hours. And its psychoactive effects are thought to be due to partial agonist activity at the serotonin 2A receptor, the 5-HT2A receptor. It's considered a broad spectrum serotonin agonist, so it actually activates a number of different serotonin receptors, and those are all listed here. But its psychoactive effects are primarily due to agonist activity at the 5-HT2A receptor. And it's really this pattern of broad spectrum activity at serotonin receptors that gives psilocybin its unique psychedelic profile that actually differs quite substantially from something like LSD, even though LSD is similar structurally. And it's that 5-HT2A partial agonism that is responsible for most of its physiologic effects, which I'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. It does have little activity at other monoamine receptors, including histamine, alpha and beta adrenergic receptors, as well as dopamine. And so this means that there are few side effects, unlike what you might see with drugs like tricyclic antidepressants, for example, which are active at quite a few monoamine receptors, in addition to affecting serotonin levels. And the fact that it has minimal activity at dopamine receptors is thought to be why it has less or maybe a lower addiction potential than some other drugs that are abused. As I mentioned, its half-life is pretty short. The duration of activity is anywhere on the order of 4 to 7 hours, with after effects that sometimes last on the vicinity of 1 to 24 hours, and that is very dose dependent. So on the right, you see this schematic for the typical description of onset to come up or to the high, so to speak, which happens in about 15 to 30 minutes. And then there's a plateau for about 2 to